this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology, bringing you the lunar eclipse that will take place on the 16th of July at 24 degrees of Capricorn, and it will be aligned with the fixed star Peacock and conjunct Pluto, and also Saturn still conjunct the moon's south node as well as it was in the solar eclipse. The tarot card that goes with this decan is the Four of Pentacles, and the healing crystal will be the Rose Quartz. So, Capricorn Decan 3 can be quite a difficult place for the sensitive moon. This is because of this decan's great ambition to sit in the seat of power. The throne this goatee moon so craves conflicts with other emotional ties and family's demands. Now, in the mundane world, this lunar eclipse highlights behind-the-scenes advisors who rule vicariously. So at this time, care is needed not to pick the wrong leader to follow, otherwise one can become the lapdog to a very domineering and bullying superior. Orders at this time are followed unquestioningly, and although loyalty is admirable, it can be disastrous if misdirected. So this lunar eclipse is shrewd and clever, but its power behind the throne vibration can be abused when it's not directly accountable. So the king, quote unquote, will get the comeback for any advice given, whether good or bad, while the advisor avoids the blame. Sometimes the behind-the-scenes dynamic can make those touched by this lunar eclipse seem quite shadowy and untrustworthy. So the star for this lunar eclipse is Alpha Pavo, which is found in the Peacock. Its meaning is rather obvious. The peacock is supposed to be vain and loves to display itself, but Robson says it also gives fame and a long life, and I believe this makes men particularly attractive since, of course, it is the male bird that has the beautiful plumage. So the meaning for the peacock is that it's endowed with the power to kill snakes, and apparently they are known to eat small poisonous snakes. Because of its ability to swallow snakes and assimilate their venom, it was seen as a powerful symbol of transmutation, and the venom gives its flesh an immunity to decay. And this venom is also accounted for its colourful plumage. So this immunity from decay is interesting since longevity to one's name after death and possibly the ability to preserve one's good looks into old age also is a characteristic of this decan. The shimmering colours of the peacock's tail feathers were explained by his supposed ability to transform snake venom into solar iridescence. So yeah, this is all about transformation and transmutation as well. Since this decan is ruled by the sun, I think there's also an association with royalty too. This decan produces natural leaders, but there could also be a fascination with royals or even a belief that they're connected to some special bloodline. So yeah, that'll be the subject matter that may be concerning certain people at this time. The sun also accounts for the creativity found in this decan and the great sense of theatre. The peacock is also the sacred bird of Hera, and she placed the eyes of Argus Panopetes, the 100-eyed giant who sees all, on the peacock's tail as a reward for his services. Argus is also associated with the Latin for silver argentum, and it was said that Indus, the neighbouring constellation, was the discoverer of silver. So the third phase of Capricorn. So this is described in the Picatrix as a man opening a book which he opens and closes, and before him is the tail of a fish. This is the face of wealth and the accumulation of money and increase and embarking in trade and pressing on to a good trade. So the lunar eclipse is really a super menstrual wolf howler version of a full moon, and it will do a great job of purging and releasing things from our lives that no longer serve our higher selves. The bright light of the sun throws a spotlight onto our subconscious to illuminate any issues within our primary relationships that have been festering there since the previous solar eclipse. And that's not this solar eclipse, that's the one before this one, but the one that was 6 months ago. With the lunar eclipse, the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, and sometimes we get a blood red moon as the Earth's shadow slowly creeps across its crater face. Depending on how things have gone in the last 6 months, we can now see the fruit blossom from the seeds we planted at the last solar eclipse. But if life has been stressful for us, putting pressure on those embryonic seeds, then what should have been a birthing time can sadly turn into a miscarriage. So you can read more about what a lunar eclipse means in general on the post that I'll link to below. So let's get on to the tarot card, and that's the Four of Pentacles. Now, Teach Me Tarot says that fear of scarcity is often related to the Four of Pentacles, so you may worry unnecessarily about money if you've come from a background of poverty. This leads you to hoard or penny pinch even when you have enough money. This card is a positive and welcome card for savings though, investments or retirement plans. It indicates that you are accumulating goods, wealth and possibly even power. Your financial situation has been steadfastly growing over a period of time, but this is not by chance or even pure luck. End of quote. Now, this card supports the general tenacity of the goat. Nothing is thrown out that can be renovated, and if something has to be binned, it will be recycled or given to charity. And those touched by the solar eclipse will have to work hard for everything that comes to them around this time. And a lunar eclipse only lasts for 3 months, by the way, not as long as the solar eclipse. But it still doesn't make this a light-hearted period of time, because the aspects for this moon are, or eclipse rather, is that the moon is conjunct Pluto and the sun is opposite Pluto. So with moon conjunct Pluto, it's penetrating, provocative and plunges headlong into the dark sea of lunar emotions without fear. Those touched by this eclipse will want nothing less than dramatic and intense sexual relationships that profoundly transform their lives. The general vibe at this time is that the closer we brush with death and trauma, the more alive we feel. So it's pretty obsessive. Then the sun opposite Pluto swings between extremes of dark and light, extrovert and introvert. The brighter the sun, the darker the shadow is a cliche, but it works so well with this aspect and with this lunar eclipse. A very sunny exterior could be masking heartache and a very traumatic life. And this, I guess, will push the collective to live life on the edge as well. Life can be full of drama, and there will be much brushing with death and the taboo. At worst, though, this can involve drugs and crime. It's also a very serious aspect in terms of secrecy and control, and it could bring extreme control freaks into our lives. The energy wants to know where everything is at all times and can be intimidating and, in extreme cases, tyrannical. So yeah, watch out for any obsessive peacocks. Then, I mean, you know, the peacock looks lovely, but maybe you have to beware of what's underneath and where that iron fist is. Well, yeah, the iron fist disguised with pretty plumage, I guess. So the healing crystal, I chose Rose Quartz because this is a full moon. It's a turbocharged one, but it's associated, all full moons are associated with relationships. And I think with this one, with Saturn conjunct the South Node again, it's definitely about letting go of a romantic karmic bond or even a trauma bond. And this must be done really kindly so both of you can move on and make new, more nurturing partnerships and not be left with any residual negative karma. There's also a need to renew one's own trust in love and the kindness of human nature as well. So Crystal Vaults says that this is a fair and lovely rose quartz with its gentle pink essence. It is a stone of the heart, a crystal of unconditional love, and it carries a soft feminine energy of compassion and peace, tenderness and healing, nourishment and comfort. That's what we really need at this time. It reawakens the heart to its own innate love. It provides a deep sense of personal fulfillment and contentment, allowing one the capacity to truly give and receive love from others. Now, the myth behind it was really interesting. I'd not heard of this before, so when I read up on this, I thought it was really lovely and appropriate that we have this with a sort of blood red moon as well. So the myth goes that when Adonis was attacked by Aries, who was in the shape of a boar, his lover Aphrodite came running to his aid. Along the way, she got caught on a briar bush, and by the time she found her lover, a mix of their blood started to soak into the quartz stone, giving rose quartz its iconic rosy pink hue. So yeah, I think that fits really well. So yeah, I think karmic binds and love is the theme for this lunar eclipse, definitely. And we could see a lot of making up and breaking up at this time. Make or break situations, really. So let's have a look at what it means for each individual sign. So with a lunar eclipse, we have to take in account both the sign that the moon falls in and also the one opposite, because they are inseparable in the meaning of a lunar eclipse. So yeah, both these eclipses also take place in cardinal signs. So the cardinals are really going to get the most juice out of these. So that's the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, of course. So let's look at the meanings through all the signs. So the first up is Aries, and this one for you is going to be really important because it's in your 10th house of status. So the problem that this brings is never feeling satiated. There's always more to learn, more to achieve, more prizes to win, and this is exhausted. You'll find that it just starts becoming really exhausting, and it could leave you with very little time to spend cultivating a happy, fulfilling family life of your own. It is possible that an event occurs that shakes up the home-work imbalance, if there has been one. Once you begin reparenting yourself, you might find that you start earning enough so that you can actually afford to pay for some assistance. These extra staff can take up the slack in other areas so that you have more precious time to spend with your family. Suddenly you're able to pay for a house cleaner or for someone to be your PA. It finally dawns on you that you don't have to look after everything yourself. You see that it's a false economy to spend many hours on tasks another could do much faster, and that your time has more value long term in doing what you do best. So for Taurus, this eclipse falls in your house of expansion and higher learning, and it pulls you out of your local box and throws you into the vast plains of endless possibility. So this could throw up a situation like, say, we're on a bus that breaks down, where we get talking to someone much older than us with a totally opposing worldview. This could prompt us to question our beliefs and look into them further, maybe even taking a degree course in something related to that discussion. So this local incident could result in you going further afield, even travelling to the bus passenger's native country, something like that, you know. But whatever the scenario, this lunar eclipse shows how much you have outgrown any restricting parochial attitudes. For Gemini, this eclipse falls in the underworld zone of your chart, so mysterious that you may not even realise how much it has transformed you until 3 months have passed. An eclipse in this zone of the chart can feel very primal. It's blood-curdling and brings up very raw, primal urges that make you feel quite shameful. But it is also about remembering what it's like to be an animal. In our sanitized world, we can sometimes get overly fearful about losing our second house modern conveniences. Now, these mod cons, as they used to say, and they are kind of a bit of a con, include essential Wi-Fi and a mobile phone. But being in the dark of the 8th house might put you in a situation where you feel cut off from cyberspace. Indeed, you might wish to go off grid for a while, de-electrify and lie in some mud. So shoveling horse manure on a remote Scottish farm might be a good idea. Or maybe it wouldn't, but that's the kind of 8th house thing that might happen under this eclipse. For Cancer, this falls in your 7th house of marriage, but this actually means your personal identity is up for a revamp, one that expresses more truthfully how you feel inside. As your image changes, so do the people you attract, and by the same token, this means there are people that you might find you are starting to repel also. Of course, if you are in a marriage, then this could be something that does cause a split if your partner feels threatened by your new identity. Sometimes this can even happen by a person losing or gaining a lot of body weight too, or sadly even just by aging. On a positive note, you may have started going to the gym for vanity reasons, but the impact on your health cannot be denied. Healthy usually means happy and full of vitality. And of course, this is attractive to others, so you may well attract a marriage proposal. So if your prospective spouse can see this is a person who invests in themselves long term, then it is also likely that you are the sort of person who would invest in having a family long term also. So for Leo, this lunar eclipse falls in your 6th house of health, and sometimes it means that you could have some kind of healing crisis at this time. Sometimes the illness is due just to some nutritional imbalance, but also it could be psychosomatic at the root of it, since the sun lights up house 12 for you. We can also have bad health as a result of psychic attacks from hidden enemies, also in that house 12. You may want to be careful at this time not to consciously provoke people into revenge behavior, because right now you're not in the strongest position. Mostly, though, this is a time of much internal cleansing, and this means you might well experience quite a few sniffles at this time in the forms of cold or flu, but these also can be tears of unacknowledged grief as well. So don't try to work over it or suppress your body's natural wisdom. Just help it heal itself. Have hot curries, blow your nose 100 times a day, whatever it takes, just let it all out. For Virgo, the lunar eclipse takes place in the 5th house of children. Now, this is also impacting the friendship house. So dissatisfaction with those friendships could cause you to retreat into a fantasy world of creativity. But there is also a possibility of feeling that you're ready to have children now, since those late nights horsing around with your friends have lost their shine. If you're a new parent, your social sphere may change as it adapts to including new friends from those mother and baby groups or dad pub quiz nights as well, or some such kind of parent bonding initiative. The craving for pleasure is acute, so of course love affairs can also feature at this time. However, usually an eclipse forces some kind of change through crisis, and this could be your unfulfilled desire to have a romantic connection. The eclipse could find you pining for someone unattainable, or it could actually manifest the much longed for love affair. For Libra, this eclipse falls in your angular 4th house, so very important. So changes that you make in your home will have a domino effect on the rest of your life. It could mean that you get a better night's sleep because you've made improvements in your bedroom. That improves your looks, which is house 1, and gives you more energy for work, house 10. Deeper sleep makes a brighter brain, so you could even be promoted at work. Such an inviting boudoir sends all the right messages out to the universe about attracting love if you are single. Now, there may be some constructive criticism from your superiors as well, but that doesn't mean that you have to storm out of your job. Instead, look at why you're viewing what should be appraisals as admonishments. Any work upsets are likely to have you scuttling back to the safety of your cocoon, but maybe you have to acknowledge that this is what is currently needed. Scorpio, you get this lunar eclipse in your house of local area and siblings, and also study as well, study at home, being a pupil again. So what happens here is there could be a pleasant exchange between the generations where grandma passes on her knowledge from her childhood. These first-hand accounts are worth just as much as any approved history book, if not even more so. The crisis of the lunar eclipse could have you storming out of a classroom or being sent out of one. You could have conflict between seeing the bigger picture and nitpicking with your brain. There is also the possibility of creating your own personal rituals and spiritual practice after becoming disappointed by traditional monotheistic religions. For Sagittarius, this lunar eclipse falls in your second house of cash, but it's opposite the house of your other half, if you have one. So you could find yourself invaluable as the power behind the throne in your relationships. You can provide emotional support and morale boosting to the main breadwinner, whether they be male or female. This also works in business partnerships too. The eclipse will show you how well you have been working as a team and how much give and take there has been between you. This is the axis of natural law. It is the scales of loss and gale, the fertile fields of summer versus the resting manure of winter. If you are solo, you could be relying too much on external validation of your beauty and talents. What are you really worth in the great scheme of things? Are you serving others or mainly yourself? Are you a parasite yourself, or are you letting people's vamp off your positive energy or talents? These are some of the questions you might be asking yourself at this lunar eclipse. So Capricorn, this one is in your first house, and this means it will force you to look at your own needs. Now, if you've been generally balanced and fair in your dealings, this can be a wonderful payback time, but it can also be a make or break in relationships too if you suddenly decide to put yourself first and have not done previously. This can be a shock to those around you, and if it does not suit your partner, then it could be that they do up and leave suddenly. But don't let this hurt your pride, for you have lost nothing. This is a great time for self-promotion, and you will be unafraid to speak your truth. You could win many followers because such confidence is always attractive. So this is one to know thyself, and yes, I know it's sad when relationships finish, but if they are draining and not feeding you, then you're better off without them. So Aquarius, this falls in your house of self-undoing and hidden enemies. So the spotlight is on what you take into your body, though, also as a result of your work timetable, i.e. too many coffees, sitting around, cigarettes from stress, etc., etc. You may get a shock from the weighing scales or a wake-up call running out of breath for the bus. This prompts you to take action and change your bad habits for the better. The unexpected gain in all this is a clarity and awareness that really enhances your bullshit detector. The more you see how fake some of the world is, the more you might feel at odds with your work environment, though. Suddenly you are sensitive to the fluorescent lighting in the office or the smell of the photocopier. It might even make you want to drop out of 9-to-5 work altogether. The mind-body-spirit connection becomes all important. So with this lunar eclipse, you realize the importance of taking time out for just being rather than being on a constant production line 24/7. So for Pisces, last of all, this one falls in your house of friendships, and this means pursuing a creative hobby could actually bring you a whole new set of friends. Somehow you stumble across an evening class or a meetup group and feel compelled to go along, and this step into the unknown could bring a totally out of the blue friendship that activates gifts that you didn't even realise you had. What annoyed the hell out of your past acquaintances is suddenly seen as a really good thing. An eclipse in the house of your hopes and wishes pushes you to be impulsive and daring in what you could create. It can make you quite rebellious too, which might be quite shocking for those who have not seen this part of your personality revel in the archetype of the Fool. So that's all the horoscopes. Now, again, I'm not going to do a rant for this one because I wanted to get these up so I can enjoy my summer holidays because it'll be eclipse season through the summer and a Mercury retrograde. So it's going to be quite busy. And so you can have an idea of the flavour of these things. And I'm going to do Mercury retrograde next. And with that one, I think I will talk about a bit more of the current affairs, because Mercury retrograde is always interesting in the sense that it is really about the power of the word and propaganda. And of course, that's a big deal at the moment in the media, and how the war of words is going on, because that's really where there's the warfare is happening. It's not happening in battle like in the old days. It's actually happening more in cyberspace. So we'll talk about that in my next video. But until then, have a great eclipse and see you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.